boys and girls. I am so happy to see you back here for another story time. Really miss seeing your faces, but I really enjoy getting to have these story times with you. And I've got some cool things to share with you this week, including a brand new musical instrument that I don't know if you've ever seen before. It's new to me too. Well, it's new to me to learn how to play, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's get started first. Clap your hands if you love stories. Clap your hands, I know you do. I'm so glad that we could be together. Glad to share a story time with you. The first story I have for you guys today is about an apple tree. Now remember, when we talk about folk stories and folk tales and things like that, sometimes these stories tell about how things came to be, things in the world, animals or the sky, the sun and the moon, and they're kind of made up stories because the people who made them up didn't know where those things came from. So they would invent stories. Well, in this story, we are going to talk about apple trees. A long time ago in this story, there was only one apple tree on the whole earth, and it was just a baby. You make a little tiny tree with your hand like this. It was just a teeny tiny tree, and it didn't have very many branches to speak of, and it didn't have very many leaves. It certainly didn't have any apples yet. And it looked up in the sky, and it saw all the beautiful, beautiful stars up there. And it thought, I want to touch those stars so bad. So it stretched, and it stretched, and it stretched until it was a great big apple tree. But even though it stretched as high as it could, it still couldn't touch the stars. The stars are pretty far away. I think you know that. And so it was sad, and it started to cry. Until along came the star fairy, who heard the tree crying and said, "Oh, apple tree, why are you so sad?" And the apple tree said, "Star fairy, I want to touch the stars, but I'm way down here, and they're all the way up there." Well, the star fairy thought for a moment and said, "Because you are such a beautiful tree, I'm going to go up there and get some stars, and I'll bring them down here for you. How does that sound?" The tree liked that. So away went the star fairy, all the way up to the stars. It was a pretty long trip, and so the star fairy was gone for a while. And in the meantime, back down on Earth, the apple tree started to grow little tiny pink and white blossoms and green leaves all over. It was spring. And the blossoms were so beautiful that the tree smiled. And then along came summer, and those little blossoms dropped off, but in their place, there were little teeny tiny apples. They were all over the branches, and they were so fascinating and funny to the tree that it wasn't thinking much about stars at all anymore. And then along came fall, and all those little teeny tiny apples grew into great, big, beautiful apples, and they covered all the branches of the tree. They were heavy, and they were shiny, and they were pretty, and the tree was so proud of all of its apples. But about that time, the star fairy came back. The tree had forgotten all about the star fairy, and the star fairy looked at the tree and said, "I've brought you this basket full of stars, but your branches are full of apples. How are you ever going to hold the stars?" And the tree said, "Well, thank you, star fairy. I'm very grateful, but I don't need to touch the stars anymore. My apples are filling up my branches, and they're so pretty, I couldn't bear to give them up." Well, the star fairy thought for a moment and said, "I have an idea. I'm going to take each of these stars, and I'm going to give each one of your apples a star. And then every time a child looks inside one of your apples, they'll see a star. Have you ever looked inside an apple when you cut it open? Did you ever look at its seeds? Now, how do you think that got there for real? Could it be a star fairy? I don't know. Okay, so I know it's morning time, but we're going to do a finger play about sleep. And this is going to be our little boy. Can you make a little boy with your finger? Here's the little boy. And here is his bed. Here is his pillow where he lays his head. Here are his blankets. Pull them up tight. Sing him a lullaby and kiss him good night. Let's do that one more time. Here's the little boy. And here is his bed. Here is his pillow where he lays his head. Here are his blankets. Pull them up tight. Sing him a lullaby and kiss him good night. I wanted to show you my new instrument. This is called an mbira in some African countries. In other African countries, it's called a kalimba. Some places, it's called a sanza. Of course, all of these things look a little bit different depending on what country you're in. Sometimes they have more of these keys. Sometimes they have not so many. Sometimes they're kind of stacked on each other. Some of them are round. Some of them have more holes on the bottom. They're all a little bit different, and they use them for different things too. Some kinds of mbiras get used for things like worship, that's like at church or at temple, and some of them are just used for entertainment, for dancing or playing songs like I do with you. That's kind of what this one is like. It's just an entertainment one. And I'm still learning how to play it. That's why it has these colors on it so that I can remember where the notes are. It takes a lot of practice to learn how to play a new musical instrument. And sometimes when you start playing, it doesn't sound very good. But you keep at it and you learn a little bit more each day. And before long, you get pretty good. And the nice thing about the mbira is that it sounds pretty okay, even if you haven't practiced very much. It's pretty. Now, I'm going to tell you a story that uses one of these. And it's the story about a lion on a path. So listen closely. You see, once upon a time, there was an old man and an old woman, and they lived in a little house out by themselves in the country where they had a farm. And there weren't that many people who lived around them, and the old man didn't mind so much, but the old woman had grown up in a big family, and so she got really lonely without a big family around her. And so, pretty often, she would ask her husband if it was okay if she went off to visit her family. And it was always fine with him, because he didn't want her to be unhappy. One day, she went to him while he was hoeing his vegetables out in the garden, and she said, "Husband, I'm lonely. I miss my brothers and sisters. I'm going to go into town and visit them." And the farmer said, "That's fine. I'll do the work without you. It's all right. But make sure that you take the main path. I heard that there's a lion that's somewhere between here and the village. Make sure that you don't go down any of the side trails." The old woman was very, very excited to go visit her brothers and sisters, and so she wasn't listening very much. And the old man suspected that might be the case, so he was worried a little bit as he kept hoeing his vegetables, and the old woman left. A little while after she left, he felt a funny feeling, nervousness in his stomach, and he thought to himself, "I bet she took the wrong path." And so he put down his hoe and he started off along the path after her as quickly as he could move. And sure enough, when he got to the place where the two paths separated, he saw his wife's footsteps, her footprints, going the wrong way. He was really worried, so he quickly followed along after her down that path. And when he came to the curve where he couldn't quite see what was around the corner, he started to tiptoe. As he came around the corner, he saw a lion. And he saw his wife standing there very, very afraid and not wanting to move. And the lion was getting closer and closer. And so the old man didn't know what to do until he got right up to her. And then he thought, music might help. And he always carried an mbira tied to his belt. So he quickly picked it up and he started playing the mbira. And the lion liked the music and stopped moving, stopped looking at the farmer's wife, and looked at the mbira instead. And the farmer said, "Run, wife! Back down the path the way you came!" And so she took off running. And the farmer kept playing, and then he thought to himself, I have to find a way out myself. And then he remembered. There was a rock behind him along the path. And he said, if I take a couple of steps backward, I can hide behind that rock. And so he took some steps backwards. But the lion liked the mbira music and followed after him. And the man said that wasn't far enough backward, so he took some more steps backward. But the further he went, the further the lion went. And the farmer said, I'm never going to get out of here. And he just kept playing a long, long, long time. And the lion just sat there listening for a long, long, long time. And he started to get tired. The farmer's thumbs were starting to get sore. And the lion's head was nodding up and down like he was getting tired too. But he wasn't even blinking his big lion eyes. And just when the farmer thought he was going to have to stop playing because his thumbs were so sore, he heard someone say, "Psst." And he looked down, and next to his foot was a rabbit. And the rabbit said, "Hey, I've always wanted an mbira. If you give me that one, I'll keep playing so you can get away." And the farmer said, "Deal!" And he handed the mbira off to the rabbit, who started playing, just as nice as you please. And the farmer took off down the path after his wife. Well, now the lion was staring at the rabbit, and you would think that the lion would eat the rabbit. But the lion was still enjoying the music. And then the rabbit started to get tired. He started taking little hops backward, but the lion just kept following him. The rabbit started playing slower and slower. And the lion's eyes got droopier and droopier. And the rabbit got closer and closer to something behind him. It was his hole, his rabbit hole. And he got closer, 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 and jumped right back down in his hole, leaving the mbira on the ground. The lion blinked and shook his head. And he said, "That was the strangest dream. I thought I saw a woman, and then I thought I saw a man, and then I thought I saw a rabbit, but all I see now is an mbira. I can't eat an mbira." And the lion shrugged and went back off into the jungle to look for his dinner. The end. This week, we're going to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But instead of playing on my ukulele with us, I'm going to play along on the mbira. If I make any mistakes, will you be patient with me? Remember, I'm just learning how to do this. And maybe if you want to, if you have something that rattles or jingles that you could play along with, or even quietly clap your hands, you can help me make the music. And when we all play music together, it doesn't matter if it's perfect. It'll sound pretty because we're all doing it together. Okay? Here we go. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Pretty good. When the blazing sun is gone, when heat nothing shines upon, then you show your little light. Twinkle, twinkle all the night. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. As your bright and tiny spark gives us night lights in the dark, though we know what you are. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. It's hard. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, stand up and twinkle where you are. Everyone stand up. Twinkle high. Wave your hands up in the air. Twinkle low. Twinkle fast. Twinkle slow. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, now sit down and twinkle where you are. Let's do the beginning one more time together. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Good job. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's story time. And maybe if I get better and I practice and practice and practice, we can use the mbira some more. Maybe we'll try to get some other new musical instruments on here that you've never heard of. Or maybe you have. When I was growing up, my grandmother actually had an mbira. She had a lot of instruments. And maybe you know someone who has a lot of instruments at home too. Well, for now, let's see if we can get a great big stretch. And maybe we can touch the stars that are up in the sky. You ready? Reach for the ceiling and touch the floor. Stand up again. Let's do some more. Touch your head and now your knees up to your shoulders like this, you see. Reach for the ceiling and touch the floor. That's all there is. There isn't any more. Bye-bye. See you next week.